Hey y'all, welcome back. Y'all can see Chip in the background there. Chip, hey buddy. You could have stayed where you were. Sorry for whistling, I guess. Hey buddy. Hey buddy. Our base today is I'm gonna be doing a series about the seven chakras. I'm gonna start with the Earth star, which is located about 12 inches beneath your feet, basically in the ground. Or like 12 feet beneath you. It's basically in the imagine it being in the earth. Then we have the root chakra. So going from there, there's a bit of debate going around in my circles because I always recall the sacral chakra being next, right? But now it's the solar plexus. So it goes root, solar plexus, sacral. But I've seen pictures online on Google where it went root, sacral, solar plexus. And I don't know, maybe it's different for everybody. Maybe people have different maybe our systems are all different. Like in human design, we have like projectors, and we have manifestor generators, regular generators, and reflectors, which are the rarest type, right? Um, it's just like information changes over time, uh, and there's something that can be said about truth because while the true truth, like that's the thing, the true truth, the truest truths stand the test of time. Like, but there's some things like you could say, well, the sky is blue. The sky isn't blue every day. Sometimes it's pink. But yes, we know that usually on a typical day, the sky is blue. But why is the sky blue? Well, you could say because our eyes reflect light a certain way, and the chemicals that mix in our brain when the brain sends a neuron signal to the eyes or to the corneas or like the eyeball and the nerves attached to the eyes, it makes us see blue because as you people know, humans only have like 12 cones of vision, where other animals have more or less. Like dogs see gray, they I think only have 3 or 4 cones, something like that. I'm not too hip on the science there. Um, so okay, the sky is blue to us. That's true to a human or to God, and but to a dog, the sky is always gray, maybe light gray or white. So what is the truth, right? So circling back around, if information on the internet is always changing, which we know is a constant because things are suppressed, scrubbed, or just changes with the times. Like there's always those news articles on Yahoo that are like, scientists discovered that milk is twice as likely to cause cancer. Just throwing it out there. And then a week later, a month later, they'll come back and say, scientists were wrong. Milk is the healthiest thing you can drink. Well, humans are the only mammals that drink another species' milk, right? Well, I'm not doing like the like thinker, but the like head eyes. Um, if truth is something that is tied to one's own perception and one's own thought process, whether they think negatively or positively, because the truth is going to look different to two different people. If someone is pessimistic and someone is optimistic, the truth is going to look very different to those two people. So some people agree on things like they'll say God is good, and most people can agree to that. Which God are you talking about? It's like, um, I'm not going to get biblical with you guys, but I'm leaning into Gnosticism, going down that pathway. But that's not what's important, right? That's not what's important. That's not what's important. Um, so let's get back to the main point, right? If information is always changing or being suppressed or repressed, if there is a editor behind information, let's just say there's a section of the government called information editing, and their whole job is to censor or edit the information that the general public citizens consume, right? Whether that be through news broadcasting, celebrities endorsing certain bills to be passed, or celebrities just saying certain lyrics in their songs that trigger certain feelings that would make people like run to the polls, or certain language or hand signs used in music videos that relate to government. Or and government is not just a bad thing, it's Saturn. Things that relate to Saturn worship. We could talk about the Black Cube of Saturn, 555, things like that, things of that nature, right? Um, so if there is already somebody that, or entities that edit information and suppress information, then how does that change our truth? Because if we have always lived in a colonized patriarchal society, those of us who are from America and have always lived here, natural born Americans, um, how does our version of the truth differ from someone that was born across seas in a country that, say, is matriarchal, or somewhere that where we would say anarchist, where there is no established order? How does their truth look compared to ours, right? So I think I run into this a lot with Christians, and this is not the channel to demonize anyone or say, oh, they're dumb and we're smart. No. Just I run into this with a lot of people who subscribe to Christianity, mythology, and the faith, the religion, even some of the more mystic Christians, like the spiritualists. They tend to have a very fixed view of the world, and they think that their truth is collectively the collectives. Now, if you believe in uh Yeshua, I call him Yeshua. If you believe in Jesus Christ, though, you believe he died for your sins. Well, every culture does not have a Bible in the terms of Christianity. Every religion or pantheon, every path may have a similarity, because a lot of the gods, what you see was when the Romans invaded Europe, and basically Catholicism in English and Christianity became the go-to religion. It's the main supported belief system. You see an erasure of lots of indigenous folklore. Their history was literally burned. You had explorers like Christopher Columbus, when not after they pillaged villages, they would go and collect all their books. They would take their artwork and they would burn it. They were erasing people's identity. So if a lot of identity has already been erased from indigenous lands, like America is indigenous land, but there's just settlers on it, there's colonizers here. If these places already had a truth, and the narrative has shifted from that truth to this more white Eurocentric way of thinking, and regardless of if we're woke or not, or we meditate or do yoga, drink kombucha, regardless of if we meditate 30 minutes a day, 30 hours a day, regardless of if we have learned Eastern mysticism or just have shifted out of a colonized perspective to a decolonized perspective, anyone who is American, your version of the truth is still different, because while and white people love to say I have black friends. Well, yes, you may be an ally, keyword maybe. Um, your experience has not been that of your black friends. You have not been harassed by police like Jamal. Yes, you may have gotten arrested after breaking a bottle over someone's head in a bar and starting a fight. That's just natural procedure. But you were not treated with the harshness that your black friend would be faced with in that same situation. So us Americans cannot say we know what it's like to be a part of the diaspora if we were not raised there, born there, or do not have cultural ties there. Even still, our version of the truth is very different. So the point I'm really getting at, the question I really want to ask is, what does collective truth look like? How do we come to a collective truth where everyone can say, okay, despite creed, race, sex, gender, philosophy, political views, besides skin color. I think I said that already. Besides age, height, weight, any of those markers that the ego makes into an identity, groups that belong to anything you hold sacred, religion, belief system, all that. How can we come to a collective truth? Because the world is moving in such a way where this capitalist system is not going to sustain us forever. We know that. We see the collapse happening, and that's not to scare anyone. It's just, and someone very wise told me they believe the magic is coming back. So like we'll be going back to say like a bartering system. I can see that happening. Money is only printed paper. It has no inherent value besides the value we as a society subscribe or prescribe to it. So if right now, if all the banks collapsed, well, that dollar doesn't mean shit. So how are you going to survive? How are you going to thrive without money? And a lot of people have already started to adapt those kind of views. Some people live like that already. I know people have friends, acquaintances that they may not have much money at all, but they're going to get in their car and backpack, or they're going to get in their car and like find places to stay, like work, like what's it called? Not work, study, but kind of per diem. Like you get your room and board is covered by the work you do, stuff like that. So like, um, I just want you guys to think like if I wasn't in a colonized society, if I wasn't in a patriarchy, and if I didn't know what capitalism was, who would I be? And I think we're returning to that version of self, because how else are we going to remove the system? How else are we going to push the weight off of us if we're still thinking from a perspective of being in this system? And I think once you make the neural connection to another type of perspective, you immerse yourself in a brand new language. That's why learning languages are so important. It's more than just knowing the vowels like Chinese, how depending how you pronounce the word, it changes the word entirely. I don't know Chinese, so I'm not going to attempt. But just like in English, we have so many words that sound the same but mean different. There and there, two and two, does and dose almost sound the same. It's just a slightly different spelling. Um, like all these words, the language. It's important to know how to say the words, but it's also important to have the neural link to the context so it makes sense. So when I say there, like they are over there or that is their ball, now you know which one I'm referring to, right? Now you get it. It makes sense. So if we can start to speak the language of our ancestors, which is heavily suppressed, that truth has been censored for centuries because it is dangerous, and not because it's going to harm anyone. It's just when you live in your authentic expression of soul self, when you are aligned with your higher self or just with God, then you naturally tap into your gifts and talents. You don't have to commodify it, you attract it, right? A lot of us fail in society because we haven't been taught the tools to go out and start a multi-billion dollar company. But that's the thing, no one teaches it. I have a lot of friends. I have some siblings even that have gone through college, graduated, have masters or bachelors, and they said, "Hey, I learned more about this stuff in on YouTube than I did in class," and they're paying like 60,000 a year for tuition. So it's like the learning is one aspect that you have to realize. And shout out to my elder Derek, dog. He's dope. He says all the time, like TV and the internet, these things like school. No, he says school. School has been conditioned upon us to dumb us down. You're not going to learn anything relevant to your uh, thriving, to your well being, or to freedom. You're not going to learn freedom in school. School is meant to make you a drone, like the Prussian military system. And you can Google this. The Prussian military system is where the United States government got their inspiration for the schooling system. So if you're familiar with Prussia during the Cold War, and I'm not saying Russia, I'm saying Prussia. They're two distinctly different places. Please keep that in mind. I think Prussians are more like Prussians. if I'm correct, they're more Albanian Bosnian. I may be wrong. If I'm wrong, correct me, please. Don't forget me. But their military system was basically like the soldiers were uh punished if they didn't do what they were told to do. Like in school, if you don't read out loud, hey, principal's office. If you're late, principal's office. If you don't turn in your homework on time, principal's office. If you have to use the bathroom, but I said you can't and you go anyway, principal's office. You know, it's like it's all these it's a very strict way of molding someone to fit a system, and there is a direct pipeline between schools and prisons. Apparently, according to some information I've come across on the World Wide Web, apparently, for every student that fails, a prison has already prepared a cell because if you cannot succeed, if you can't sit still for 8 hours a day, if you can't go on a lack of nourishment with shitty food options like hamburgers and milk that's expired, with mysterious meat with no season, then if you can't also do all that while doing like 2 to 3 hours of after school activities and all that stuff, right? And doing homework once you get home and going to the same building with the same people you don't like, doing things you don't want to, learning things that don't matter, that are conditioning you for 365 days a year, damn near, for like 13 years of your life, kindergarten through senior year of high school and beyond, then you're a failure, right? That's how it's designed. So to circle back around, right? If we think these things are the truth, these institutions, these churches, these leaders, these politicians who are scammers, if we think these people are the truth, right? That's a very, I'm just going to say that's a very ignorant way of living. There is a way to live outside of capitalism. There is a way to live outside of patriarchy. There is a way to live outside of your ego. And I think the more we get back to that, because I'm not perfect, I haven't mastered it myself, but I do operate sometimes on a barter system. If somebody needs something and we can skill trade, that's the main thing. If we can skill trade, or say, if you have something I want or need, and there's something that I have that you want or need, then we can trade those things. It doesn't always have to be about money. Money tends to make things a lot more impersonal, and there's less emotion, there's less connection to it. It's just, I sent you this now, give me my stuff, right? That's why craftsmen are so underrated but undefeated. I would love to get back to a time where there are plenty of crafts open, where artists have guilds, where artists have rights, where artists don't have to starve the beginning or majority of their career until they finally go viral, right? I want to live in a world where art isn't commodified behind likes and comments on a picture. I want to actually be in a world where art is celebrated, where art isn't seen as a waste of life, where if you want to take a road trip and trip shrooms for 30 days, then people celebrate you and send you off with gifts and food and say, hey, be safe, instead of, dude, don't you have a job? Like, how will you find time? Or that's stupid. Why would you want to do shrooms in nature? Like, I would love to be not medieval times. Let's not get crazy, but just in a world that is not governed by this piece of paper and by government that rules through abuse of power. Um, I've said a lot, but it still circles back to truth. So, what is your truth? Again, if you didn't live in a patriarchal society, how would that look? If you didn't have to prove your existence through meaningless paper, how would that look? If you could live life and get all your needs met without having to sell your time for a menial job or backbreaking labor at a factory warehouse, how would that look for you? Right? Yeah, I got that stink face because some of that stuff sounds ugly coming out. Like, not the how would it look for you? That's amazing, but like just these systems, the energies and entities behind these systems, it's disgusting energy. It's gross. Um, I think in the future we'll be incorporating a lot more of nature into technology, or technology will focus more on nature because I believe the very plants and stuff like the weeds and stuff we kill, um, the insects we use bug repellent on. I think the future will revolve around us not just protecting those species, but like having to use what they produce for to sustain life here. You know, turn this brightness up, guys. Um, I just think I try to look more at the camera. I realize I don't do that sometimes. I just think like the world is shifting very fast. The Earth's orbit and rotation has already sped up. That's why we're already in freaking May in 2020. We're already 5 months into 2025. Like things are rapidly progressing, and there's nothing wrong with progression. America has the whole manifest destiny thing, like westward expansion, which has been hell. But um, change shouldn't be feared. It's just the way change can be weaponized against people. People need time to adapt. People need time to find the truth within themselves so they can contribute meaningfully to the new paradigm, to the shift. So some people say the reset, or some people will say the singularity. People need time to adjust. People need time to get in tune with their natural rhythm. When everything you do and eat is unnatural, lab grown plastic, it can make it hard to be in tune with your natural rhythm, which is really just your lower bodies, your lower chakras, your earth star, your root, your solar plexus, your sacral chakra. I said in that order because hey, that's the accepted consensus now. Um, Shouts to y'all if you can hear the cars in the background and the dog barking. That means confirmation. You know what I mean. Um, it's just I said a lot about the truth, and this is not to fear mongers. Just think about it. But I went out today. It was a very beautiful day, guys. Um, Met with some old acquaintances at the park. Beautiful park. What, Chippy? What's wrong, buddy? What's wrong, buddy? Met with some old acquaintances. Had a beautiful time in the park. Walked around the lake. Life is good. Life is great. So, despite all the madness on the news, despite all the postings on social media, all the death, all the war, all the horrible things going on, find the truth of peace within you. That's one truth that you can always return back to. Peace. It's everywhere at any time. And if there's no peace in the environment, you can be the person that emits it from your flow, and you can be the person that fosters peace. If you can create a garden, and what that means is fostering a kind of energy that where life can thrive, right? That's why some people aren't compatible. Like there are people that make your life better, and there are people that make your life worse. And it's not that those people are evil. It's just they are not creating an environment where life can thrive, or where your specific signal can thrive. And you need to be surrounded by people that can uplift and help grow your signal, your source, your truth, your being. If you're not in that kind of environment, it's time to go, right? Um, Shout out to Kay from Posy Pots. I would love y'all to check her out.